Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox. Today's video is a special one as this is my first ever graphic novel ranking featuring Team Avatar. If you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender and or The Legend of Korra and you want to see what the world looks like and what the team is up to after the show, then I highly recommend checking these graphic novels out. These are a canon continuation of Avatar, and they do a fantastic job at tying up some loose ends, continuing the story, and setting things up for The Legend of Korra very well. Toph's Metalbending Academy, Zuko's long lost mother, Azula's continuing insanity, these and more are further explored within this series, and I, for one, just cannot get enough of it. That said, today's ranking will be sticking to the main 7 trilogies from Dark Horse, starting with The Promise and ending with what I call the Femme Fatale trilogy. I will be keeping this video as spoiler-free as possible, giving away no more than what the back of the book summaries might, but I do also want to give you guys a little taste just so you know what to expect and can gauge whether this series is worth picking up. But spoiler alert, it totally is. Starting at the bottom with number 7 is, unfortunately, Imbalance. This one explores themes of industrialization and modernization within the Avatar universe as tensions between benders and non-benders begin to rise at the Earth and Fire industries. It's up to Aang and the rest of Team Avatar to cool down tempers and find a compromise for a modernizing city. I really wanted to like this one, and in all honesty, I even went in with lower expectations since this one had different writers and different artists attached to it after a very solid first 5 trilogies. I really liked DiMartino's and Konietzko's style of writing, and I felt like they set up this comic series just so incredibly well. So when I heard that a new team was coming in to take over, I was skeptical, but also hopeful to see something fresh. And therein lies the main problem I have with this one. It's not very original. It places Aang into another story where he is pinned between modernization and traditionalism, which at this point in the story is overly redundant and stale. And it focuses so heavily on trying to set up the Legend of Korra, even though it feels like it's still way too early for that, and the previous novels have already done most of the heavy lifting, such as creating Earth and Fire industries and setting up the Equalists. So in the end, it feels like this one is overstepping on what those first 5 did in a lot of ways. However, given these grievances, I do think the story is fairly solid. The characters feel a bit different, but you're still able to buy into their motivations. The humor does take a bit of a backseat as well, and while the art style is very different from the first few, it bodes well for setting up the villain and showcases one of the best settings of the entire series so far. It really does feel like you're in Cranefish Town while you're reading, and I, for one, really appreciate that level of detail. I'm definitely ready to give this team another shot with a full-length trilogy, but as for now, Imbalance is at the bottom for me. Moving on to number 6, I have The Promise. Being the first graphic novel of the series, The Promise focuses on Aang's and Zuko's relationship post-war as they learn to find a balance within the world and seek retribution for all. And the relationship is quickly tested with the conflict of Fire Nation colonies within the Earth Kingdom. This was a very promising start for the series. You will find that these books can feel quite rushed at times since they have such ambitious stories with a limited number of pages and space to get it all done. But putting that aside, I felt like this one flowed pretty well from plot point to plot point. I really think the study of Aang's and Zuko's characters as well as their relationship is top notch here, even though Zuko makes a ridiculous request which drives this story. A request, mind you, that every Atla fan knows Aang would never follow through on. There are quite a few rash and idiotic decisions within this story, so it definitely requires a small suspension of disbelief. However, all that said, I was so happy to see Team Avatar again and watch them learn and struggle in the new world that they've created for themselves that I flipped through these pages in a single sitting. It was also such a long journey for Aang and Katara's first kiss, which they saved for the very last moment of the show, so it was awesome to see that relationship again and see it heat up in this series follow-up. However, I will admit that their incessant use of the term sweetie hugged the line of adorable and mentally insane. But coming in at number 5 is the Femme Fatale trilogy, consisting of 3 shorter length comics. This trilogy focuses on 3 separate stories highlighting our favorite heroines, Katara, Toph, and Suki. These are much shorter, tighter stories that have way less inconsistencies, way more originality, and fill in a few gaps for the show while setting up a few things for the Legend of Korra as well. The first story follows Katara as she joins a crew of pirates. The second showcases Toph's metal bending academy and her discovery of a lava bender in an underground bending ring. And the third focuses on Suki's time in the Boiling Rock prison and her pursuit of community. All in all, short and sweet adventures and/or character studies that give our girls more time to shine. Next up at number 4 is The Rift. As Toph must confront her past and Aang must confront the inevitable future, The Rift is one of many stories about tradition clashing against modernization. I really enjoy this story for the most part, as it sets up much of what's to come from the rest of the comics as well as the Legend of Korra. After the first 2 heavily focus on Aang and Zuko, this one shines a bigger spotlight on Toph, a fan favorite, introducing a love interest for her and digging into her complicated relationship with her father. The story also takes place in a small town which holds historic roots for Aang, which soon becomes Cranefish Town in Imbalance and later on Republic City in The Legend of Korra. And the art, especially the style for flashback scenes, is incredible here, making flipping through the pages a very easy task. Now, I will say that the dialogue does feel a bit choppy here, even when considering its medium, and its character work isn't my favorite of all the graphic novels we've gotten so far. They make Toph fairly unlikable and overly argumentative, which makes it hard to take her side when a rift between her and Aang does begin to form. However, at the end of the day, this is still a very enjoyable story, and it's one that I think every Avatar fan would like to have in their collection. But kicking off my top 3 is North and South. Sokka and Katara return home after being gone for so long, from saving the world and all. Their dad is in a new relationship and has a new title within the tribe, resulting in Sokka and Katara taking different sides on key issues. I really enjoyed this story. Aang is elsewhere for the most part, as this one takes place at the same time as Smoke and Shadow, which is great because it gives Sokka and Katara some much needed time to breathe as characters. The villains also feel more lively to me than in the other books. They're not perfect, they're not terrifying, but they do their job and set up some awesome action sequences within this comic. There are great lessons here, especially for Katara, great philosophy as it dives into moral questions of action and belief, and the world building is tremendous here. Even the art style feels a bit improved from the ones before it. Now, not every arc has time to breathe, as this story does feel a bit overloaded at times, and the repetitive theme of traditionalism versus modernization can detract from its otherwise effectiveness, but it sets up the equalists for the Legend of Korra and the growing tensions in Cranefish Town very well, and I walked away from this one absolutely loving it. I mean, can you blame me? It gives us these awesome snow leopard caribou. But taking my runner-up spot is The Search. One of many Zuko-centric stories within these graphic novels, The Search answers the largely asked and lingering question from the series: where is Zuko's mom? There's not much I can say on this without diving into spoilers, and I want every Avatar fan to be able to experience this one as I did, so I'll just leave it at this. This is one of my absolute favorite stories from the Avatarverse. It has great humor and great world building with one of the coolest new spirits, and it is an awesome follow-up to The Promise and a great setup for the rest of the comics. If you could only read one of these graphic novels, I think this is the one that you should pick up. Which, oddly enough, brings me to my actual number 1, Smoke and Shadow. After a Toph-centric story with The Rift, Smoke and Shadow kind of picks up where The Search left off and continues Zuko's story as the new Fire Lord within this very new world. The story here is one of the darkest Avatar stories, which I love. Azula is back, crazy as ever, and Zuko and May's relationship is explored more here as well. The action, the visuals, the lore, the twist, they all make for such incredible storytelling and make it nearly impossible not to read this one if you did decide to pick up The Search. Well, that's my list, and if you've read this series, don't forget to share yours down in the comments below. And if you haven't read this series yet or just didn't know that they existed, I hope that I was able to encourage you to pick these up. And if you are just one of those people that have no idea what Avatar: The Last Airbender is and what we're talking about, for one, what are you still doing here? And two, go watch it now. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button and share this video with a friend, as that is what helps the channel out the most here. I have plenty more Avatar ranking videos, so do be sure to check those out. But as for now, that's it from me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you all next time.